Good afternoon, great people. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
All right. I know that a lot of you on.
Good afternoon, Corey.
Hello, this is Campbell Swaby. All right, welcome everyone.
Hi.
Another one in the series of Jamaica Land We Love, and we love land. And our guest today is none other than an astute attorney at law from the beautiful place that we all love, Jamaica. Christine Campbell Swaby.
Oh, yes.
Right, Salmon and Swaby. All right, and we have Mr. Jason Baker, of course, from Moreland Development. This forum will not be possible without Moreland Development. It will be pointless because we source the land and we build your dream from that. And of course, our preferred mortgage provider, Victoria Mutual, will be joined by Mr. Leighton Smith. Of course, we'll be taking you through some of the wonderful ways in which you can get your dream actualized. We have a very intense session today. We want to make it as interactive as possible. So we're asking individuals to, drop your questions in the chat box. Get familiar with those on the Zoom, because we have one thing in common. And I will assume, I will go out on a limb and assume that we all love Jamaica. And we want it to be the place
to work.
Not necessarily to retire, right? Not necessarily, but I can put that in the mix. The place to be. No matter what is happening in the world, it's the place to be. And owning that place is something that we encourage persons to do. Now, for those who have read the flyer, the information on the flyer, there's something that I want you to kind of zone in on, and the purpose. Securing property. Number one, building your home and protecting your investment. Now, all these three things will fall in the realm of some legal conversation. Owning a home, owning property is a big step. It's a great leap. Some people do it in faith. Some people are educated before they make the move. Some persons depend on testimonials. And that's why we're here today, to empower and to make sure that the move that you make, it is seamless as possible. All right, so we have a panel of experts that will deliver all the answers to the questions that you may ask or may have been thinking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to, for this one, I'll invite Lord Alan Akello to lead us in short word of prayer. A lot of things happening across the world. And I would like to say that we're blessed. We're blessed to be here. I can see you. I see names, familiar names, and we're in one accord. And I'll ask Lord Alan Akello to lead us in prayer before we get the proceedings going.
All right. Shall we bow our heads? Heavenly Father, we thank you today for this gathering. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your heart. We thank you for your provision. We come to you in gratitude, Heavenly Father, for your word says, while we still yet pray, you are fast to respond and to answer. Father God, we thank you today that value will be instilled, that your presence will be here, that your hand will be upon this meeting, that you may enrich our lives, because your word and your promise has said, beloved, above all things, I wish that you prosper, even as your soul prospers. So Heavenly Father, we thank you for this meeting today, that we shall all leave with something of true, real value. In Jesus' name, amen.
And at this point, we invite Christine Campbell Swaby from Salmon and Swaby attorney at law firm to do her presentation. And of course, I know you've got a wealth of questions, ladies and gentlemen. Christine.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, UK. Good afternoon to the persons in Jamaica. Thank you for having me, Corey. Thank you for doing this. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Leighton, to the other presenters that are on after me. So let me just jump straight into it. Can you all, let me just check, can you all hear me well, properly? Am I coming through? So I can't tell.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
Right. So, okay. So when I was invited to present on this Zoom call, I looked very carefully at the subject matter and, you know, to determine how I was going to approach and how I'd speak as a lawyer and as a person living in Jamaica. So the subject matter, as Corey said, is called Jamaica Land We Love, Decisions Beyond COVID. So I asked myself then, so what's next? What's changed? What's next in the real estate market in Jamaica? Has it changed since COVID? And if it's changed, how has it changed and what can we do? So in thinking about it, I came to the conclusion really that nothing has changed since COVID. What COVID has done is merely pause the market for a little time. Pause the market. Investment in real estate in Jamaica is still very viable and extremely desirable. So for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to speak to you, not just as an attorney, but also as somebody who is a descendant of Jamaicans, from parents that were born in Jamaica. I was born outside of Jamaica, but I migrated to Jamaica 12 years ago. So I have a certain amount of experience of life living inside of Jamaica and outside of Jamaica, and what it's like to invest as an investor from someone that's coming from outside of Jamaica, which I presume that a lot of these Zoom calls are, excuse me, are aimed at. So why I said that viable and desirable place to invest, I say it for many reasons, too many to mention on this call, but in short, one of the main reasons is that there are millions of Jamaicans. In fact, they say that there are more Jamaicans that live outside of Jamaica that live inside Jamaica. There are millions that live outside, whatever reason, whether it be education, career development, earn some foreign currency. But I put it to you that many Jamaican nationals that reside overseas have a real desire to eventually return to the country of their birth. How can the real estate market be affected long-term by something like COVID? Really, you know? In fact, Corey, I'm going to quote you from your post from last night. Last night you said, when you're promoting this platform today, you said, Jamaica, own where you love, own Jamaica. And I love that. I so agree with that. It's so true, you know. And another reason why it's really good to invest in Jamaica and why Jamaicans will always buy property out here is that don't forget the descendants of Jamaicans. They make up a huge proportion of persons that invest in Jamaican real estate. And there is a trend and a definite shift in thinking for the younger people. When I say younger people, I'm talking about persons that are under 40, let's say, the under 40s. Looking,
All right, Christine, I think your connection is giving you a little bit of trouble there.
it's a good choice. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to be brief. One of the main reasons, and I'm sure that realtors, any realtors on the program, the mortgage person can tell you that the value of real estate in Jamaica never diminishes in value, ever. Did you hear what I said? It never diminishes in value. Even during the crash of the 1980s, when everything was crashing around the world and Jamaican prices have remained buoyant. Important. You know that your money is safe in Jamaica. So if you're desirous of yielding a good return in profit in a relatively short space of time, then real estate in Jamaica is definitely where you should invest. And you know, Jamaica has problems. We have a lot of problems in Jamaica, not least, you know, crime and all of those things. And this is not the platform for it. It's not the time or the date. You know, and not least, you know, we're classed still as a developing country, so to speak. But nonetheless, it's a fabulous place to live. It's a fabulous place to visit in the short term. It's a fabulous place to visit in the medium to, you know, the medium term. And it's a wonderful place to reside in the long term. So how you will invest and where you would invest in terms of real estate will depend on where you are in your personal own life, in where you are, the season in life that you're in, okay? Excuse me. So why is Jamaica so fabulous? Again, let me ask you, I keep telling you, it's the climate, the vibes, the beaches, the food, the people, you know, Jamaica to the world. We know about Jamaica to the world, you know. And I'm going to say this on this platform, and I'm gauging words because I'm not sure of the audience, but I'm going to say it once, so listen carefully. Non-Jamaicans have caught on, they've caught on, and they are investing and buying up good land and property in Jamaica. I'm only going to say it once, so you heard what I said. Non-Jamaicans are catching on, and we don't want to have a fear of missing out as Jamaicans ourselves. You understand? Okay. So that said, as a buyer of property, and I prefer to call you, the persons on this call that are listening in, I prefer you to call you investors, because that's exactly what buying real estate is. It's an investment. It's probably the best one for investment to education. And as an investor, especially one that is entering the real estate market for the very first time, you need, in Jamaica or in any market, you need to ask yourself 3 questions. And I'll go through it very quickly because I'm aware of time. What's my budget? What type of property do I want to buy? And what is the purpose of my purchase? And I would also add a...
All right, hold on, Christine. Christine, I'll tell you what, I'll turn your video off to see if that balances out the... Hold on, Christine, 1 second. I will turn your video off, or you turn your video off.
And, what's happening?
And you're breaking up.
Turn it off?
Yes. And then
I am? Oh, hush.
Hold on. Let's see if we can get you.
Turn it on.
All right, I'll stop the video. All right. And let's try your audio, because we don't want to miss that important bit that you're saying there. Go on, Christine, let me hear you.
What should I do?
Go ahead. Keep talking now.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now? Is that better? Am I still breaking up?
No, man.
I don't want to break up.
Much better.
Okay, so leave the screen off then?
Yeah, leave it off.
Okay, so where was I? I forgot, I've lost my train of thought. Oh, I was saying that you have to ask yourself these questions, because that will determine where in Jamaica you buy your property, and also the answer to those questions will also determine what kind of property you buy. So whether you buy a constructed house that's constructed already, or you build your own house, or you buy from a developer in a gated community, such as the wonderful Moorlands Estate, the hosts of this Zoom call. All right. So right away, what I'm going to do, since you know we're having difficulty, I'm just going to bite the bullet straight away and just jump right in and say, if you are a first-time investor in real estate in Jamaica, I would say, and I would encourage you as an attorney at law, as somebody who has experience themselves of real estate in Jamaica, I would encourage you to give serious consideration to buying from a developer, such as the developers at the Moorlands Estate, or any other developer in Jamaica, but the Moorlands ones are lovely, as you would see. why do I say that? Why do I say, go ahead and build a huge house in Jamaica with 8 bedrooms and a pool and a this and a that? I would say to you, why would you want to do that? I imagine that the audience of this Zoom call are probably, like I said, most of you may be first-time potential investors in Jamaica. And so when people ask me, especially persons from the diaspora, the UK diaspora in particular, they ask me the question, what is better to do, build or to buy? And my answer is always the same. Or I ask the question, would you, living in the UK or in the United States or in Canada, whichever part of the world you live in, except outside of Jamaica, would you build a house yourselves in those countries? Would you take that big thing on yourselves? You wouldn't. So why would you, all the way from where you are with no experience in the field, do it in Jamaica? You have to be then reliant on an expensive contractor perhaps, and maybe reliant upon family and friends to facilitate. Horrors are when those things, you know, my God, I in
All right, Christine, I think we have lost Christine to the technology bug. Apologies. But the chain of thought is that owning a home in Jamaica is a huge step. And a lot of times it can be daunting if you have no experience, if you have no guiding hands in the processes. And lucky for us, we have the likes of Mr. Baker here, who will ask to step in, following on that thought that Christine, oh, we've got Christine back.
Yeah, I'm back.
All right, we lost you a bit, Christine, to technology. Hope your signal is much stronger though. You were
Is it
saying,
stronger now? Yeah.
that it's a huge step to build in
Yeah, and I
Jamaica.
was saying, so it makes sense. It makes sense. Mr. Baker is there and he will agree with me, I know, 100%. It absolutely makes sense if you're investing for the first time in Jamaica, especially if you're from the diaspora, but even if you're here in Jamaica, it makes sense to buy a pre-constructed house, a standalone house, or even better, to buy a house from a developer that's going to build it for you. And since this Zoom call is being hosted by a developer, I will focus on that aspect. And my thing is this, and Jason's probably going to laugh when I say this, but why not let the developer have the stress of dealing with, and it's a high level of stress, dealing with the municipal councils, the subdivisions, the zoning and existing land use, the National Planning and Environmental Agency, NEPA, conform to the stipulations of the Building Act, compliance with Town and Country Planning Act, sewage, electricity, water, access, ingress and egress, that's for the lawyers in the group, height of buildings, setback from the roadway, gullies, canals, coastal zones, rivers, changing use, agricultural lands, and last but not least, dealing with workmen on a site. The list of stress is endless. Let the developer do that for you. That's what you're paying them for. And as an attorney at law, it is our job, I'm going to go legal now. As an attorney at law, it is our job to represent the best interests of the buyer, or as I prefer to call you, the investors. You're going to be investors. And the developer will have his own attorney at law, and his attorney at law will be acting in the best interests of the developer, right? So let me just pause, stick a pin right there and say that I'm not saying that as an investor, you need to be protected from the developer. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, is that your purchase of the investment property is a transaction. The purchase and the selling of property in Jamaica is essentially contractual. It's a contractual transaction in nature. and it's subject to the usual legal clauses, most of which follow a standard format. But there are a few clauses which can be and need to be negotiated, especially if you're buying from a developer. So each attorney at law, the one for the developer and the one for the purchaser, will defend their own client's corner, so to speak. So it's not that the attorneys are in a legal battle. Purchasing real estate is not litigious unless something goes wrong. But each attorney is going to represent the best interests of their respective clients, and each attorney will want to ensure that the contractual terms do not cause prejudice to their clients. So since I mentioned the L word, lawyers, let's talk about the legal steps that the purchaser of real estate will take to fulfill their dream of owning a piece of land or property at moorlands in Jamaica, land we love. In short, these are the steps the investor of real estate will have to take if they're buying from a developer. And hopefully after this Zoom call, persons on this call will be minded to have a look at moorlands and give them some serious consideration. So whether or not you're using a realtor, you will need to make an offer which is acceptable to the developer. And persons sometimes wrongly believe that the offer and the acceptance of the said offer is the point where the parties are legally bound. However, this is not the case. The offer and acceptance part is where either party can change their mind at this point without any legal or financial repercussion. But once the offer has been accepted by the developer, the developer's lawyer will draw up the agreement for sale. And in the UK, you call it the contract. In the United States, I'm not sure what they call it there, but in the UK, we call it the contract. In Jamaica, we call it the agreement for sale. And the said agreement for sale is drawn up by the developer's lawyer. And if you're buying from a developer, it won't be the usual like 8-page contract. It's going to be about, I don't know how big your contracts are, Jason. 30 pages, I see them go to, and 40 pages sometimes. They're huge. They're huge, right? So the developer's lawyer will have what we call conduct of sale. So the agreement is then forwarded to the purchaser's lawyer for his or her, we call it perusal, comments, corrections, amendments, negotiations, and if necessary. And that contract may go back and forth between the two lawyers a few times before we settle down on the terms, and then we can get to a point where we can sign. I'll just stick a pin right there again, one more pin, in that all parties in a transaction for land must have a TRN number. So if you're on this call and you haven't got a tax registration number, TRN number for Jamaica, then I strongly suggest you check your consular office in your respective countries and get one, because you cannot do anything in terms of purchasing land or property or buying from moorlands if you don't have a TRN number. Okay, so once all the terms of the agreement or the contract have been agreed between the lawyers, then the contract or the agreement is executed, is signed. I think in the UK we say contracts have been exchanged. That's what we say in the UK. But over here we say that it's been executed and signed by both buyer and seller. And at that point, that is when you as a purchaser will pay your deposit on signing. And it says that it is at this point that both parties are legally bound to the agreement. So if it is, once you both signed and you paid your deposit, and you as a purchaser change your mind and think, I can't bother with this thing, I'm going to leave this, you are in breach and you are likely to lose your deposit. The developer, whoever you're selling to, is allowed to keep your deposit. That's the rules of contract. Okay, so there are a few things that I need to tell you as a purchaser that you may know some of the usual things, and I won't go into everything. But one of the important things that will in your contract or your agreement is that it will indicate the conclusion date, which is the date for everything finished, the date where you get in your property, etc., your keys or whatever. And during that time period, there will be a window in which the purchaser can conduct a survey of the property to ensure it is exactly as described on the parent title. This is for the developer, from the developer. So you should never skip this step, because this is the only time as a purchaser that you will have to ensure, and confirm the identification on land of your property. Once you let that window go past and you haven't submitted a surveyor's report from a commissioned land surveyor, what will happen is, if you let that time go past, you've missed your opportunity, and then you're buying as is, whether it's described wrongly or not on land. Okay. As a matter of fact, if you're buying with a mortgage, one of the stipulations, and I'm sure Leighton Smith will confirm this, is that the purchaser must conduct a land survey with a commissioned land surveyor and a valuation report of the property at your own expense, for obvious reasons. For the valuation, it is to ensure that the mortgage company is getting good security for the money. It's worth what they're securing their monies on. Okay. So, as part of the process, the developer's lawyer will do various steps, because they kind of facilitate the steps going forward to the conclusion of the sale. And one of the things they do is pay stamp duty. And the reason I mentioned stamp duty here, listen carefully, stamp duty currently in Jamaica is a mere 5,000 Jamaican dollars, shared equally between the purchaser and the seller. Let me say it again, it is a mere $5,000. Prior to and up until quite recently, I think last year, July, stamp duty was 4% shared equally. So as a purchaser, you would have been paying 2% of your purchase price to the government in stamp duty. So who wants to do that? So at this point now, we're not, it's $5,000 is like the price of 2 pizzas. So you have to really say that stamp duty has been abolished. I don't know how long that will go on for, especially in light of the economic climate. They may very well change that soon and put it back to the 4%. So if you're thinking of investing and you want to do so in the most economical way, then bite the bullet now and go for it, because stamp duty is very cheap at the moment. It's almost non-existent. So therefore, we continue. After the contract period, the balance will be paid either by the mortgage company or yourself if you're buying cash, and the sale is concluded. Done, you get your property, right? When you're purchasing a development property though, it's the same process, but it's a little bit more complicated than this. And there are a couple of things I want to point out that the buyer, when buying from a developer, should be aware of. And one of the most important things, and I don't know if Moreland's properties in their sale agreements have this clause, but a lot of persons do. Maybe Jason or Corey can advise afterwards. But in general, when you're buying from a developer, you will find a clause in your agreement for sale or your contract, and that clause is called, we colloquially call it the upscale clause. And that clause is there, and it deals with inflation during the time of the build project, from the agreement date to completion. And if this if this clause is invoked, the price of the property can substantially increase. It can increase the cost of the project build, and the said increase is customarily absorbed by the purchaser. And I usually see upscales of about 10% or 20%. It all depends. Maybe Morelands can advise if they have one and if they do, what it is in terms of their build. Remember, when you're buying from a developer and you're building a property with the developer, the time frame set for completion may be delayed, sometimes drastically, due to the fact that there are factors that are definitely outside the control of the developer. Factors can come into play, such as lack of, they can't get certain things, certain materials, the weather. We may have a hurricane, we have a rainy season in Jamaica which stops play, and we've just seen COVID-19 that stopped play for many people for like 3 months because of social distancing and all of that. So be aware that, be flexible with your time scale and where you're going to get your property, because things may delay your property from being built. If you're buying from a developer of a gated community, such as Morelands, it is likely that as part of your sale, and I'm sure Jason will be able to advise on this, you will enter into a management or association or an association agreement, which is another big document usually, and it lays out the terms for the management, maintenance, and security of the complex. All right, so be aware of that. So basically, you're gonna be paying for your house, and then you will be coming into liability for a monthly maintenance fee, usually if you're buying into a gated community. Okay, so the customary, when you're buying a property in Jamaica, whether it's from a developer or not, the customary deposit is 10% of the purchase price to begin the process. I don't know, and I think Morelands, let me not speak out of place, but I know Jason may give you good news in terms of their deposits. I'm not sure, but for most developers, it's more than 10% that they're asking. They usually ask for 20, 25% when buying from a developer, because some developers, depending on how the developer is funding the project, you know, need that money, to continue. And some of them may stipulate in the sales agreement, there's nothing wrong with it, it's either you agree or you don't agree, that a further payment or further payments are made before completion. And just as an important side note, and listen carefully because this is very important, you must ensure when buying from a developer that if there are any restrictive covenants on the parent title which prohibits multi-unit building erection, those restrictions have been discharged or modified by a court order from the Supreme Court of Jamaica. This is one of the things that can really blight. I know Morelands is not one of those developers, but we've had recent cases in Jamaica, and it's a sticking point, and people are aware of it. And this is one of the things that your attorney at law.
Sorry, one second, Christine.
Yes.
Can you repeat that, please? Had a little bit of drop out there. I just wanted to be clear. All right, just repeat that bit. Thanks.
Where the drop out? From where? About the restrictive covenant?
Absolutely, yes.
Right, okay. What I was saying, that recent case law in Jamaica has highlighted a problem with some unscrupulous and rogue, I have to say that word because they are, if they've done this, then they're unscrupulous, rogue developers, or developers that have cut corners or tried to go about things the wrong way, in that when you're buying as a purchaser from a developer, your lawyer, because you probably can't do it yourself, but your lawyer will ensure that if there are any restrictive covenants on the land that they're developing, which restrict them from building a multi-unit estate, as you call it, or a scheme, or I don't like to say the word scheme, or a complex or something like that, then those restrictive covenants would have to be removed or discharged or amended. And the only person that can do that is a judge in chambers at the Supreme Court. It's a process, it can take a little while, it's a little expensive as well, but it has to be done. Otherwise, the developer is building in breach of the covenants. And therefore, we have seen from recent case law that there can be, if someone objects, the buildings or the building can be ruled to be demolished. It's very important that you know that what your developer is building on or is built on is not in breach of any land restrictive covenants. Because even though they may have building permission and building code and building permits from the various councils, it does not supersede what is contained on the title for that property. So they have to ensure that any title restrictive covenants are also dealt with as well. Okay, do you get that now? Yes?
Right, yes, got that.
Okay,
got that.
So in conclusion, I'm going to finish now actually soon, but in conclusion and in summary, when you're purchasing from a developer in Jamaica, it is, for the most part, from my experience, I've been an attorney at law a few years, I've dealt with a few, it's usually a satisfying and a very rewarding experience, especially if you build a good relationship with your developer, right? But beware, beware, beware of dealing with a developer. In fact, don't deal with a developer who is not registered with the Real Estate Board of Jamaica and is thus regulated by the rules and regulations of the Real Estate Dealers and Developers Act. You know, just be aware of that. They have to be registered, and you can check. You can just phone the real estate and they'll tell you. So I'm going to go now. I'm going to finish because I'm aware that other persons are probably dying to speak, Leighton and Jason. So I hope the listeners have received some insight and feel that with the right information and guidance, buying property from a developer in Jamaica is a worthwhile and profitable venture. The partners at Salmon and Swaby Law Firm, which is where I'm from, i.e. Debbie Salmon and myself, we are available for further consultation should you wish to discuss anything further in detail, and we can be contacted at Salmon and Swaby, this is the and is A-N-D, Salmon and Swaby at gmail.com, or by telephone on 876-405-1110 or 876-770-6597. Okay, so I'd just like to personally thank everyone that's on this call. I'm not techie, so I can't see who's here. So I'm presuming that other persons listening to this call, and I just wish you all the best. So whether you're here, whether you're here because you're curious about property and investing in Jamaica, or whether you're here because you're serious about investing in real estate, I wish you all the very best. Thank you for listening, and goodbye. And as we say in Jamaica, walk good. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Christine. But here's where we lay on the questions before we move on to Jason, who will address the build on your own property session. Christine, what are the pitfalls that you should be mindful of when you're purchasing your own land and then you will engage?
I'm sorry. Again, what is the pitfall when you're purchasing your own what? Land?
When you're purchasing your own land and intend to build, what are the pitfalls? What should you look out for? If you notice that there's a little hut on that land, should you go ahead with purchasing it? Should you consider it being squatting? If family owned the land before and say, look, you can take piece from that lime tree to that mango tree,
right.
How do you proceed with that?
Okay, that's a lot of questions there in one question. Let me see if I can address them as I heard them coming out. Right, I think I addressed earlier what the pitfalls are in terms of in terms of building in Jamaica. I'm not saying it's bad to build your own house in Jamaica. It can be a good thing. It depends on if you're a resident in Jamaica, and a few other things come into play. You also mentioned, what if there's a family land that is owned by several people? There's a hut maybe, or a little board house on the property. What I would say is, if it is that you're going to build property on land that you think you own in Jamaica, don't just think that you own it and then start building. Make sure that you own it. So if it is that you need to have it surveyed off, if you need a title for it, your own title, then engage a commissioned land surveyor, survey off your land, peg it off, right? Get your own title in your own right before you start building. Because what will happen is, one, you may be building on something that you can't prove is yours, and then there's problems and generational feuds later on for your generations or for yourself later on. And two, when you are asking the municipal council for building permits to build on what you perceive is your land, they're going to ask you for your title. They're going to ask you to show them a certified copy of your title. And if you haven't got a certified copy of your title with your name on it as a builder or whatever, you are not going to get the building permits to build. So what are you going to do then? You're going to build in contravene the Case Act rules or the council rules and build without a permit. So you're asking for all kinds of trouble. That's what I would say. Get your title, first of all. Make sure you've got a title for your property before you start building. And then if you are going to build on a property yourself, then make sure that you have an appetite for risk, and make sure that you're here for some of the time, for some of the build. And if it's a big piece of land, then you can get someone like a Moorlands to commission that for you.
All right. The question coming in from Marcia. Which office do you collect your title from? Are you living in St. Elizabeth? Do you collect it at Black River? Living in St. Ann, do you collect in Clarendon? Which office do you collect your title from? I mean, all questions are valuable because they're great concern to individuals. There are backstories to all the questions that are coming in, right? So when you're applying for your title, about to say license, where do you collect it? Or if it is sent to an incorrect address, what could have gone wrong there? That's a question from Marcia.
Is that a question for me, Corey?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking. Sorry, say it again. What could have gone wrong if you don't get your title?
All right.
Say it again.
Individual living in St. Elizabeth and expected the title to be posted out to them, but it has gone to another address. How do they fix that problem?
Okay. So it sounds as though it's a lost title. If it's lost, if the title has been lost, and I'm not sure why they would post it, because as far as I know, National Land Agency in Jamaica, in Kingston, they don't post out titles. You go and collect it and you show your ID. So I don't know, maybe the attorney posted it or something and it got lost. Okay. It's not the end of the world at all. All they have to do is make an application to the National Land Agency, and the application is called a lost title application. And it has to be made by the person named on the title. And if there's more than one person on the title, then all the persons that are named on the title have to make the application. You put in the application form and you have to make a statutory declaration. If there's more than one person on the title, you all have to make, it's like an affidavit. And you have to point out how it was lost, when you last see it, and all those kinds of things. And then the registrar will look at it, assess it, and issue out, cancel that one that's lost and issue out a new title. It's not that difficult, but you have to advertise as well. So it's a process your lawyer can help you with.
All right, and does the National Land Agency have remote offices?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What is a remote? What do you mean? Other offices outside? I really don't know. Corey, to be truthful with you, because I'm in Kingston and I've always only dealt with the National Land Agency at Hanover Street. But I would imagine they have sub-offices elsewhere in other districts. I would imagine they would.
All right, Marcia. All right, what we'll do, we'll signpost just after this session. There are offices that you can go and collect your titles, and I think, of course, Mr. Smith and of course Jason can address that. So thank you, Christine. There are a few more questions here, but I see where it's falling in the realm or in the remit of Mr. Baker. So at this point, we'll take Mr. Baker, and then Christine, hope you stick around for all the other questions coming at you. They're coming thick and fast. They're on my WhatsApp as well, and also some coming from Facebook. So, all right. So Jason Baker, take it away, sir.
Good afternoon, good night to some people, depending on where you are in the world. Everyone hearing me?
Good.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. Well, if I may start off, let's. One of the questions that was answered was about the NLA. NLA basically that's the National Land Agency, has an office basically in every parish of the island. But to get your titles, there's the titles office in Kingston that has to get your title from. So you can't go to the one in St. Elizabeth to get your title. You go to the one in Kingston, and you would have to bring proper identification. But in the most part, when you're buying properties and your attorney is handling the matter for you, your attorney will collect your title and you'll get it from your attorney. So hopefully that answers that question. So good evening again. I'm Jason Baker. I'm the marketing manager for Moorland Development Company Limited. We are Jamaica's premier developer of gated eco-friendly communities. So we'd acquire a piece of land, we'd put a perimeter fence around it. We will put in security guards at the gate, have armed security patrol the premises. There'll be CCTV cameras throughout. And we'll put in first world amenities like a clubhouse, a swimming pool, a gym, football fields, tennis courts, basketball courts. Some of our communities have, one of them have a golf course, the other has a lake for fishing, well, two have areas of fishing, one has a private beach. We could get into our development, but I know this particular meeting is about building. And whilst we build for people on our own properties, we also build for people who have already acquired their own property, and we would build for you wherever you are in the island. So there are a few things that you should consider. One, when you're purchasing the property, and a lot of the questions I see coming up is, firstly, if you're going to be purchasing a property, you're going to be making a huge investment. It's not a small investment. So firstly, to protect yourself, you should get an attorney. You get yourself a surveyor, so when your attorney would advise these as well. You get a surveyor to survey the property, so they would go and identify that specific plot of land that you're interested in purchasing. And the surveyor's ID report would state, yes, the boundaries are from here, 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 and here. Typically, you'll have 4 or more pegs to demarcate the boundaries. And your attorney will do a title search to ensure ownership, so that you're purchasing the property from the relevant people, the people who are authorized to sell it. So I may own the property, but I've authorized a realtor to sell it, or I've authorized my sister to sell it, or a family member or a friend. However, you need to acquire who actually owns the property, so that you don't get yourself in trouble from buying from people who are not the legitimate owners or not the agents of the old owners. Now, once you've acquired the property, as we said, this is about building. When you're ready to build, depending on the time frame, because generally people don't acquire the land and start building at the same time. And a surveyor's ID report only lasts for a year. So when you're building, you typically need a surveyor to go back to the premises, especially if there are people building around you, to do what we call reopening the boundaries. And that is going back and identify all the markers that uniquely identify that plot of land. If the markers are missing, the surveyor will put them back in. He'll actually give you a drawing of the lot as well. That drawing you'll present to your architect. Now at Moorland Development, we offer construction services, so we could put you onto an architect who designed the house for you, but if you already have your drawing, we will build according to the drawing that you have. So you present to your architect with the surveyor's ID report. If the land is relatively flat, then that's okay. If the land has a slope on it, you would ask the surveyor at the same time to do what is called a topography report, which details the depth of the slopes on the property. So your architect now will design for you a house that best suits that plot of land. You don't want to design a bungalow, which is a single floor house, or a piece of land that is sloping uphill or sloping downhill, because that means you would either have to fill all of that area to make the land flat, or you have to cut it if you're going uphill to make the land flat. In either case, it would be more expensive than if you were simply, if your architect had designed something for you so that it fitted that piece of land. Once your architect has designed the property and you have the drawings, then we'll take the drawings to the parish council. And the parish council generally they meet in general once a month to design on building. So generally, you send your drawings to the parish council within a month, you will get approval if your plans are all good. And after that, you can go ahead and start building. So let me just share with you my screen, and I'll show you, Corey.
Go ahead, Jason. Sure.
Yes, I don't have the share screen option yet.
Yes, man. Go ahead. It's there.
All right, thank you. So, let me bring this up. You're looking at a drawing here now. Everyone see this drawing?
No.
You're not seeing the drawing?
Not yet.
Not,
It's coming
yes,
up now.
no. Yes, it's come up.
Now. No.
Okay. So hopefully you can see the drawing. Let me see if I can let it a little bit bigger. So this would be the drawing of a house on a plot of land. So we're looking at it from above. It's an aerial view, so we're looking at the roof. And the boundaries that we see here, where it says site boundaries to the side here, if you notice where my mouse is, this is the actual dimensions of the land. So where it says site boundaries, the four corners of the lot. So this would be a 1/4 acre lot, and the person for this particular unit was building a 4,000 square foot house on it, bungalow. So all this area here is land space to go around your house. So when a person asks again, is a 1/4 acre of land a large enough land to build a house on? Yes, it is. It's quite big, simply to put a house on. This would be a next elevation of the same unit. So we're looking at it from the front and from the right side. So these are the plans that an architect would give to you that you would bring to the parish council for approval. When you go into the parish council, you would need several things. This is the interior of the unit. This particular unit is a 3-bedroom, 3.5 bathroom unit with living room, dining room, TV room. They have a breakfast nook in it, their kitchen, and several porches all over the property. And again, how the unit is situated on the land. So when you're going to the parish council, you will require 4 things. One is proof of ownership, and you get that through your title. So you have to prove you own the land for the parish council to approve the plan. 2, the tax certificate. So you have to send in a tax certificate to show that all your property taxes have been paid up in full. There are no property taxes owing. 3, you submit them the actual drawing for the unit. And 4, the surveyor's ID report, which would show that the house properly fits onto the land and you're not encroaching on someone else's property. So after we get approval from the parish council, and whilst well, not after, even whilst the plan is at the parish council, you would get an independent person called as quantity surveyor who would give us what is called a surveyor's ID report. And the surveyor's ID report, we're looking at snippets of one here, and the surveyor's the bill of quantities, sorry. The quantity surveyor will give us a bill of quantities. And that bill of quantities will break down the actual costs of putting this particular unit on that particular plot of land. So if we just scroll down here to the summary page, then we'll be looking at the summary for structure. So it breaks down in detail every aspect of the construction. So it has here contingencies and in it, and these are Jamaican dollars. For this particular unit, it has $300,000 worth of contingencies. And that is primarily for land preparation.
Not seeing it, can't see it on the screen.
You're not seeing it on the screen?
No, yeah, just pause down, Jason. Just the scrolling, we're not seeing the scrolling.
Okay. Let me see what here. Let's go again. Let me go again. Is it up now?
Yes, we're seeing it. We're seeing the figures. Yes, we're seeing it.
All right. So this would be the summary page of our bill of quantities, and you'll get this, as I said, from the quantity surveyor. So the plot of land that you bought is in a particular state when you've bought it, and it has to be prepared so that the house can be placed on it. So we call that the land preparation, which is clearing the land. If it requires cutting a portion of it to make it flat or filling a portion of it to make it flat, then that is the land preparation. And in there, they typically put an amount for contingencies because none of us knows what is below the soil. So if you start cutting the land or start your excavation for your foundation and it's solid rock, then it will generally cost more than if it's marl or dirt. So you'd use more hammer work with the machinery rather than just bucket work. The substructure, which is the second line, deals with everything that is below soil. So it deals with the foundation, it deals with if you have a water tank under there, it deals with your sewage disposal. The superstructure, well, they have two superstructures here. So this is for a 2-floor house. So the first floor would cost $4.7 million for the building of this unit. So after you've come out of your foundation, which is a substructure, putting up the walls, rendering them, putting on the floor slab, which completes the first floor, would be that superstructure. And superstructure 2 is if you're going on top of that. And as I said, these are simply the summary page. Each of these, the contingency is broken down, and you can see what you're being charged for the contingency. For the substructure is further broken down, the super 1 and super 2. The sewage system has its own, is an own line item, and the finishes for the house, which is the windows, doors, tiles, kitchen and bathroom furnishings, painting your house. So the total to build this particular unit would have been 16.2 million Jamaican dollars, basically 16.3 million Jamaican dollars, basically.
So what's sorry, Jason, the conversion, yes. The conversion, just reminding you of the conversion, euros, US and pounds sterling.
Where euros, US are pounds sterling. So let's say you were doing it in pounds for argument's sake. And the pound is about what now, Kirby? 170?
174.
174. So we would divide that by 174. So we would take that $16.3 million or thereabout, and we divide it by 174. Oops. And we'd end up with about 94,000 pounds to build this particular unit.
In euros, Jason, it would be 101,000 roughly.
101,000 pounds in euros.
Whoa. All right, continue, Mr. Baker.
Right. But again, this is based on this particular size unit. So this is a big unit. You can always build a smaller house because remember, you're starting from scratch. And the best way to build your house is to come to us and say to us that, listen, I've spoke to Leighton and I've shown Leighton my income and expenditures. I told Leighton I want to build a house, and Leighton says to me, I am qualified or I'm pre-qualified to borrow $90,000 or 80,000 pounds. And then we would work backwards from that in order to get you a unit. Because we're not going to start a house for you, which when we do the calculation values as 100,000 pounds when you're only qualified to, you're only allowed to borrow 80,000 pounds and you don't know where you're getting the additional 20 from. So we would say to you, don't go 4,000 square feet because that is going to cost 90,000 pounds. Probably you need to reduce the house size to 3,500. And you can easily do that by one, don't make a 2-car garage, it's probably a 1-car garage, or reducing the size of some of the rooms that you have to fit the unit within your budget. I know it's a lot, so at this point we'll take some questions before we move on to any other parts of it, before you forget some of the questions. I've seen where people were asking in the chat about warranty, how long you get. When we build a house for you, you would get typically a year's warranty for any manufacturer defect on the unit. The units here are normally built from cement and concrete blocks and steel. When we give a bill of quantities, that is the general figures that are in it. If a person wants to use drywall, they would tell us and we would make adjustments in the price for that, for the interior walls, let's say.
All right, so in terms of having it bespoke, the flexibility is there for persons to suggest or recommend what is used for partitions, that sort of thing. But would you compromise on the exterior? Would you compromise on the structure itself? So that's a question that's popping up in the WhatsApp group. I'm asking about other persons building and they're compromising the structure.
No, we won't compromise the structure because the architectural drawings sometimes comes with, well, they have an engineering drawing as well. So we won't change this size, for example, the size steel that goes into the house. So when the architect designs the house and the engineer looks it over, they decide they're going to use a 1/4 inch steel or 3/4 inch steel or 1/2 inch steel in these columns. That is what needs to be put in there. And one of the reasons you go ahead and get a quantity surveyor to do the bill of quantities is that quantity surveyor will come as well and sign off on aspects of the building. So they would come and sign off and say, yes, they've built the columns the way they were designed, and yes, they've put in it the materials that should go in it, so therefore you can go ahead and pay for that work. And I know Leighton will have inspectors that come to inspect the project before they pay off on it. From over the period of the construction period, they'll have people that come. So we can't do that.
All right, another question. As it relates to other properties already built in other gated communities, price-wise and size-wise, what's the comparison? Would it be a better deal to do this based on what you have mentioned, the adjustments that you have made, on persons' appetite for the design and the cost factor itself? So, in just reforming the question, is it more affordable with that size, that 3-bedroom you have just given, 16 point million, 91,000 UK, 101,000 euros? Would it be better to go this route than to buy something in a gated community because of price, and what that price would be?
All right. If you're building a house, it's cheaper than buying one. Building a house is cheaper than buying one, unless you're going to be buying an older house, in which case you would have to do refurbishing, which would work out more expensive. But when you look at building a house and you hear that this house will probably cost you around £91,000 or thereabouts, then when you look in the Glean and you look at other 3-bedrooms being advertised in communities, they say they are much cheaper because they are much smaller. Remember, we're looking at the size, and what we find is, if you're going to be buying a 3-bedroom house in an established community from people building, then those 3-bedroom homes might be 1,500 square feet or 2,000 square feet in size, maximum. When you look at an apartment being sold, 2-bedroom apartment, it's 1,000 square foot. But when a person is building, they're not going to be building 1,000 square foot unless they want to. They tend to generally want a bigger house. So when you compare the sizes of the units, if you're building 1,000 square foot or if you're buying 1,000 square foot, it's cheaper to build it yourself than to buy it.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jason. There are a few more questions coming around, but I think I'll apportion those questions to Mr. Smith, because it has to deal with the finance side of the business. All right. You can continue, Jason.
Yes. So that is it. The issues that you would face when you're building. Now, at Moreland Development, we offer 4 services when it comes on to construction. The first service is to build what we call the shell of the unit for you. So we put up the walls, the roof, do the rough electrical and plumbing, put in the floor slabs and all of the substructure. So your septic tank, your water tank, your sewage disposal. So if you're in the UK, for argument's sake, and you have a 3 or 4 year plan and you're building out a pocket, because if you're going to go to Leighton, the house has to reach a stage which is called habitable. So you have to be able to live in that house upon you spending the money that you have borrowed. So you can't spend the money simply to build the shell. Leighton would lend you the money for that. Leighton wants to ensure that you're a building society. Their main aim in lending you money for doing a home is that you can actually live in that home, or someone can live in there. It's not for it to be extravagant, but it must be habitable. But if, let's say, for example, you're building out a pocket, or you have some funds saved and you want to take the house to a stage, we would build the shell of it for you. So put up the walls, render them, put on the roof, the rough electrical and plumbing, the floor slab and the substructure. The second service we offer is to do the finishes. So the windows, doors, tiles, bathroom and kitchen furnishings, painting the house. The third option is for your landscaping. So landscaping, perimeter fencing. And the fourth one, we call it the turnkey, where we combine all 3 into one contract and you simply move in your furniture, which is the one that you would get when you go to borrow funding, is for the turnkey option. Where you have different stages of construction. So if a person is building out a pocket, then they could have a 5-year plan, which they build the shell first, finish it, do your landscaping afterwards. So we're quite flexible. As well as persons who intend to return home. If we've done the finishes and you want to acquire if we've done the shell and you want to acquire your finishes, let's say you in the UK, you like a style of windows or tiles or faucets or light fixtures, you can always buy those, ship them down, we'll get them at the wharf and install them in the house for you.
All right. So Jason, in terms of persons having large plots of land with the intent to probably put more than 4 or 5 units on there, what's the procedure for that? What's the advice, and how would Moreland undertake such a development?
Well, it would depend. Let's say a person has, because we tend to do large properties. So let's say a person, as family, they have 20 acres, 30 acres, 50 acres or above, and they want to do an actual development. Then they can go about it 2 ways. One, they can contract Moreland to do the development for them, or they can partner with us. So they can say, all right, we have the land, I want you to do the development, and then we would work an arrangement in terms regards of how we share the profits. If you want to build 4 homes, we'll come in and build it for you. If you want to build an apartment complex, if you want to do commercial buildings, we do all of that.
Sorry, Jason. Mike was on. So in terms of the large plot of land now, and I say to you, Jason, come in. I would like to have some townhouses built on this. I want probably 20 units, 20 apartments. You can probably separate them in 2 blocks, 10 in each. Now, I have had the land for how many years? Has been passed down to me. I've got the title. Here it is. I may retire soon. I just want to just work it out and pay me. Is that an option to consider? I know you have answered it in terms of partnership, but how easy would such a conversation be, and how quickly can that be done between lawyers?
Well, that's a quite easy conversation, you know. We'd look at the location of the property that you have, and we'll check we've done studies on most parts of the island already. So we have a good grasp as to where demand is for housing, or if you want to do a rental property. So you come to also that piece of land. We are primarily a South Coast developer. So let's say you have land on the South Coast, then that is a very easy thing. We know the South Coast very well. So we can tell you within a couple of visits whether this is feasible. Then now the attorneys will get together and do their bit. Because a couple of things would have to do, would have to submit a feasibility study to get NEPA approval. You do what you call an inquiry first. So you don't just go and start a development like that when you want to invest so much. You do an inquiry and they'll tell you, yes, if you submit the approvals, you'll be granted permission to build.
Mm-hmm.
Right, sounding good. I've seen the chat light up. Edward Bosher saying that, wow, that's not a bad deal at all. I suppose there are a lot of people with X amount of land that they want to do something with. They've got the title, they're not sure if they want to do farming or they want to construct. No, I know that there is some investigation that you would have to do before you decide what can go on the land itself, Jason. But as it relates to the financing of it, and I think this is where we can bring Mr. Smith in, and then we can jump back to the wonderful news of build and own property and the legal ramifications of doing same, with Christine involved in that conversation. But we'll go to Leighton now, and then we will solidify with what you're saying, Jason, about the build on your own land, the shell, the finishes, and the turnkey option of building on your own land. I've seen other questions coming in relating to the affordability of similar structures if we can build it in the gated communities and sell it on. But we'll address that at the end. Mr. Smith.
Hey, Corey. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for having us again in this room. It's actually very good to be here and to reiterate some salient points that were highlighted earlier. You know, when it comes to looking at Jamaica and the diaspora, I'm actually reading a document, a policy document just the other day, and it indicated, you know, when you look at Jamaicans outside of Jamaica, we're numbering well over 3 million, and the population in Jamaica is roughly now between 2.8 2.9 million. And therefore, it is often felt that the middle class, in terms of wealth, is outside, significantly outside of Jamaica, as much as inside of Jamaica. And therefore, what we can contribute by way of back or giving back is something significant. And the document also highlights that there are three main areas where they found that Jamaicans in the diaspora seek to invest. One is through business that government, for example, reduce the whole matter of taxation to foster that interest in the diaspora. Two is within stocks and bonds because of the performance of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And three is real estate. And that is why, for example, as Christine rightly mentioned earlier, when it comes to the stamp duty, it was reduced from 4% to 5%, which was really significant to encourage that growth within the market. So again, we can see that the Jamaican government is doing its part in ensuring that as Jamaicans we turn around. Now, one of the things that Victor Mitchell has certainly done is that we have had a happiness campaign where we're talking about owning your happiness. I am now in the United Kingdom. I'm assigned outside. I'm assigned from Jamaica here. And one thing that I've come to appreciate, looking at the very jurisdictions that I oversee, that is Canada, the UK, and the United States, a lot of Jamaicans, yes, to seek a life, but when you talk about affinity, again, what Christine made mention of, there's the desire to always go back home. And there are many, particularly now within the pandemic, we have seen a lot of persons real importance of owning property. My colleagues earlier made some good points. Again, there are a lot of non-Jamaicans who are purchasing property in Jamaica. So what does that say to us who are Jamaicans? It means significantly we need to own a piece of that rock, and we have to make that decision earlier or sooner than later. So one of the questions asks, what would be the likely resale price of this property in about 5 years? Property appreciates in value in Jamaica, and Christine made mention at this point as well, but roughly anywhere from between 12 to 15% annually. And therefore, if you make that solid investment, you can begin to appreciate that, 2-3 years on the line, it's going to go up in value. Sometimes, when you look on a valuation report, you will see, for example, the market value of a property being ballpark figure 15 million, but you see the replacement value being something like 25 million. And you go, how can the replacement value be so high compared to the market? Market because of probably where it is, but replacement in terms of the materials that was used to build that property. And that's because somebody decided that they're going to go back and they're going to, for example, use fine cut stone within the structure of their property. That is expensive. And therefore, when it comes to happiness, when it comes to going back home, that is what a lot of persons do look at. So that's why we firmly believe in the whole fact of owning your own happiness. Jason made a very salient point again. Building your home, it's cheaper. It is cheaper when you compare with what is happening with person, for example, in some of the small apartment complexes or smaller. They're calling them hotel style living. You will find 2-bedroom, 1,000 square foot. Well, you hardly find 2-bedroom. You find one or enhanced studios. Minimum finding one of those in Kingston for is 21 million Jamaican dollars. Now, you saw what Jason showed you, 16 million. The bill, something that large. That's roughly 5 million of some properties within the corporate area. So again, it depends on what you want. There's some individuals who may believe that, I can probably deal with an apartment. But the truth is, when you're have to go for what you want, and that's what construction affords you. It affords you that opportunity to get what you want. So you can go to get crazy with your thoughts, in the sense, when I say get crazy, visit so many other areas, and then you incorporate that style within what you want, and inevitably you get that. At the point in time, my first home, I constructed it and I said never again. And I'm being dead serious, never again. But after meeting Morelands, I will tell you, yes, I will go again. Why? You need somebody to take the headache out of that construction. It's not an easy task to monitor contractors, to monitor how the work is progressing, to look at certain areas that, for example, getting a plan simply passed can be a challenge. I remember I had to sit in one of the municipalities. We were I was 29, 28, 29. And I literally said to the gentleman, I'm a young man trying. What is wrong? And I kid you not, eaves on my property, the eaves was at a 45-degree angle, and all that needed to be fixed was that it needed to change to a 40-degree angle. That was it. But I got so much headache because I decided to mind. But if you have skilled persons like Morelands who's doing it for you, then guess what? That headache gone. So I tell you, yes, construct. Now, when it comes to funding for construction, it's a little bit different. And you're going to purchase straight, as Jason would say, the turnkey option. Jason, again, was right when he talks about, having a property that is habitable. Because one of the things that will happen, we're not in the business of selling houses. We're in the business of putting you in a house. But time and unforeseen circumstances befall us all. Now, what happens if something goes wrong and you can't afford to or pay your mortgage on that property? Then what would happen is that if we are forced to go to the market with that, no one would likely take it up because it's not habitable. Now, when we talk about something being habitable, and I'll use Jason's example to ensure congruency, he spoke about putting up a shell. So that's the first step. So if you put, I'm going to say to you, if it's going to be 2-story, if downstairs, for example, is habitable, it has the running water, there's a room in there where you have running water. So more than likely kitchen or bedroom, right? Somewhere you can sleep, there's windows, there's a door, there's a roof over your head, and that is habitable. All right? That's the minimum, because we know sometimes it will take some time to get there. Now, I highlighted that there's a difference between the turnkey option and the construction option. Here's the difference. With the turnkey option, the structure is completed. And therefore, what that means is that I can fund much more as a lender. Because inevitably what is happening is that I am taking, I see my good listener there. So I'm taking Nathaniel's money. I'm going to use him as an example, right? And when Nathaniel puts his money with me, I'm going to turn around that money and then I'm going to lend it to Ricky, who is going to construct. No, inevitably what happens in a financial institution. So if I'm moving the money, taking it from one person and lending somebody else, and I want to make a profit in the midst of it, what it basically means is that I'm going to try to ensure that I can do that investment or get that maximum return. So again, with the turnkey option, it means that the property is finished, you can go in and live, and I will lend you up to 90% of the purchase price or the value of the property, whichever is lower. All right? 9 out of 10, the purchase price is going to be lower than the value. All right? So I'll lend you 90%. Now, what if you're constructing, starting from scratch? You own the land, you call Jason in and you say, okay, fine, I'll lend you the 90% because you're coming from the ground up. What I will do is that I'll fund 75% of that project. So out of pocket, you're going to have to come up with more because you're going to have to get your commitment. That's basically what you're looking at to ensure that this project is done. Again, with construction loans, have found based on our experience when you don't someone manage a project. And that's why, I mean, I applaud Jason and the Moreland team for what it is that they're doing in coming up with a project of this nature to manage the entire process. So prior to you having an organization like this that's starting up with it, what happens is that there are a lot of horror stories. So most institutions stepped away from construction loans. In going to construction loans, what we have is that we will fund up to 75%. What we're considering, or what we do, is called a bridging loan while the property is being constructed. What does that mean? It means is that we will simply fund the project up to 75%, but we'll fund it at a higher rate of interest. Now, during that time, yes, you may say, but I have other example, living somewhere and paying rent. Then what you could actually do at that particular point in time is that we could actually request a moratorium on the payments during construction. So in other words, then you don't pay anything as a principal or the interest, and then we capitalize those payments for the period and then put it back on the loan at the end of the day, because in essence, we can go on.
It's so amazing.
Yeah, okay. We're going to live up 75%. But what we would do is that once the property is finished, we convert the rate to the mortgage rate that is preferable. So, example, let's take that 16 million that we saw, 16.3 million. What we would say is that we will fund at least 75% of that 16.3 million. So, we're looking at least 12.2 million. So the difference you would have to come up with to demonstrate your interest to get it out of the ground and start it. Now, when we do that, we're saying if the construction take, for example, 4 months, during that 4-month period, we lend you at a higher interest rate, so probably anywhere between 8 to 9% Jamaican dollars. Once it is completed in construction, then the interest and the principal payment that you should have made over those 4 months, we will add that back to the 12.2 million. So probably now it will be roughly 12.3 million, the rate that you get is 6.95%, the mortgage rate, and that would allow you on to continue. All right. So when you're looking at construction versus saying, right, you find that ultimately you will get what you want. You'll get something that you're very happy with. It depends on the model of construction that you're going with. Like, am I going with a turnkey option? If you're going with a turnkey option, as Jason indicated, again, think about it. You're getting a delivered product to you at the end of the day. I will lend you 14.6, 12.2 when we talk about if it is that he puts up the shell and then you work your way through it to get at least a floor or even to get something completely habitable. Right? So somebody says, right, 22,500 to raise on top of the max of 75. That's correct. So the 22,750 is what you will put in, but you won't end up borrowing the 91,000. We'll lend you 75% of the 91,000 because that difference. And then inevitably what will happen is that you have greater in that property. So let's say, for example, the house is completed and you incurred some debt otherwise. You can come back to us and borrow the 15%. That difference, because we always say you carry the maximum. So in a sense then, so what I'm saying to you, out of that, let's say, for example, some persons we know borrow the funds, the 22,500. So with the 20,500, let me just get my calculator here quickly, guys. One sec. Times 0.9, that is 80 watts. 100. All right, so roughly you could come back to us and ask for 13,650 out of that 22,750. All right. Good. Any questions for me? None so far? Okay. So when you're purchasing and looking to purchase a property or get a mortgage, as Jason indicated, it's important that you the two critical things that we look at. One is your ability to repay the debt. So we're going to look at all your income, everything that you possibly earn. If you can bake, if you can, in Jamaica, you can do here, if you have a side job, any legal activity that yields income, yes, just declare it to us and we will consider it. Because at the end of the day, and you should be able to, one of the things that we have found is that we are very resourceful as a people, and therefore we will do side jobs. And when we get the side jobs, yes, we will take the cash in hand, but the paper trail. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where cash is no longer king. If in some places, I mean, Jason will tell you, if you come and you walk in there with cash, they will look at you. And Christine will back me up on this. Look, okay, where you get that money from? We don't know, but in a bank account. It's just the truth. So what happens is this, is that when we're resourceful and we get paid with cash, even if you get the paid cash, it's important that you show the trail, the proof. Put it in a bank account. So don't come to us, or I shouldn't say don't come to us, but here's the thing. When you come to us and we say you get this money, how can you not put it on the mattress or no, it's hard to prove it. So you have to have that paper trail proof, because that is what the indicator does. So while it is that you're meeting with a mortgage advisor and the mortgage advisor knows you want it and the mortgage advisor is going to fight for you to get that loan, inevitably who sits behind the mortgage advisor is an adjudicator, and an adjudicator numbers and looks at the facts, is the paper. So if the mortgage advisor, myself, will then say, okay, I know that here it is that Nathaniel get an extra 500 because in the party so when you get the karate, yes, I know. But if it is that Nathaniel don't have any paper trail, you know what Nathaniel gives me to do? I have to go find photos with Nathaniel in karate championships. I have to go find one with him even holding up so that I can prove that if he has gotten the money. And that is the difficulty. So anytime we're resourceful, always ensure that there's some trail to show. And right. The second thing that we do look at is that of your attitude towards debt. and that is reflected in a credit score and a credit report. It's important that we pay our debts on time. We treat this appropriately within the UK and the overseas markets. Realize that sometimes if you have no loan, then you have a poor credit score. This is over here. It forces you to important, even if your credit is messed up, that you repair it as quickly as possible, so that by the time when it comes to something important, then you're able to achieve that goal. Because then, time and time again, we have seen persons being disappointed because of sometimes they assist some relative, they assist some friend, and it gone so. Importantly as well, one of the things I will say is that, buying a house is the largest asset purchase anyone will make. It's an involved process, and it becomes even more difficult when you're purchasing thousands of miles away, because you're not there physically to see everything. That's why it's really good that you have a trusted developer like Moorlands again that can manage the project and you can see it. Because it's not easy when you see and you hear the horror stories of things that go wrong, and when you go down there, it's something that you don't really appreciate or you don't really like. Once you find you have a trusted contractor who takes care of all the risk, that is important as well. Sometimes we have persons who say, oh yeah man, tell me, and a good contractor that we know. Christine made a very valid point. Are they registered with the real estate board? Do they have the relevant insurance in place? So you talk about contractors, all risk insurance, talk about insurance. If something goes wrong on the site, something happened, they're called acts of God. Hurricanes, you're building on the hill and then a quick storm and a boulder roll over and knock down the structure. What's going to happen? All these things come to play, right? So you have to ensure that you're with someone who can cover themselves, who covers you, and of course the interest of us as a lender is critical. All right. Any questions?
All right, we've got a couple of questions rolling in. One, 10 years mortgage financing on the 91,000 pounds sterling to acquire that property from Moorlands. What's a mortgage on that? 10 years. 10 years. The person only asking about 10 years. They have everything checked.
All right, so I'll ask the next question and I'll bring up my calculator. I'll come back to that. The 91,000. Right.
All right. In terms of credit score, what about an individual with a poor credit score but have got good saving pattern? The track record is good, but the credit score is bad.
So what we'd have to do is look at the reason as to the credit score being bad. Sometimes what has happened in the past is that sometimes we will end up we'll support our relative. That relative, mess up our credit. Sometimes it may be a situation that, for example, if it's something like a gas bill that we're challenging or an electric bill, because of some reason we're challenging the situation, then, that is fine. We can work around that. If it's a willful or deliberate intent on the person paying that they know that they really owe for, and that's a different thing, because that in itself, remember we said that the credit report to us is a snapshot of how it is that you have treated credit. So you find that in itself tells you or gives you an indication where credit is concerned. It talks about there's one of the C's, there are 5 C's. That's C falls on rack. It's saying that this one has not paid the past. So what would happen if something goes wrong where the mortgage is concerned? They will also likely not pay it. And again, remember, I tell you, I'm taking Nathaniel's money and lend it to Ricky. So how am I going to turn around and say to Nathaniel, say, guess what, the man that give me back the money. So and that's what loans really are. However, if it's a situation now, the person was young, we have seen those scenarios at the point in time and the person didn't necessarily treated credit or handled credit responsibly at that point in time, but no, maybe they have a poor credit score, but they have taken the necessary action to repay or to repay these debts, so they have a payment plan going. And certainly, that going, then by all means, we will be fine with that. So again, it's a matter of sitting and talking to us so that we will be able to assist the individual to come to an appreciation as to how they will still get a loan. Okay? Answer that? You're muted, Corey.
Oh, sorry about that. This one is coming from, it says, investor. At what point should I enter the conversation between Victoria Mutual and Moreland if I want to build on a 20-acre property? At what point should I enter the conversation with Moreland and Victoria Mutual and Moreland?
So the second one. The first question is the 10-year mortgage. It will be on the 68,250. Principal and interest, your monthly payment is £730.
10 years. Okay. Okay.
For 10 years.
All right. Noted.
All right. Now, 20-acre property.
Yes. 28. Yeah. 20 acres.
20 acre. All right. So, one thing I'll say with that, anything over 5 acres no longer deemed to be residential where we're concerned. Therefore, we'd have to get approval for something of that nature. For us, Victoria Mutual, it now steps into the realm of commercial. So 20 acre is just too much. So that tells us off the bat that, okay, this person is thinking, probably they're looking at a development, and therefore we would probably want to refer that to our sister company, Victoria Mutual Investments Limited, so they can have a sit and chat with that individual to say what exactly you're going to do. Over to you now, Jason.
Well, it would be after they've spoken to Leighton or their sister company that they'd come to us. So they would know basically if they're building and they're the one spending the funds, how much funds they have before they come to us. So the first step, whether you're building a house, apartment, your first step, you want to buy a piece of land, your first step is to go and have a discussion with Leighton.
Always.
To see what you can afford or what you can afford to borrow. Then you start looking the piece of property. You don't want to go and look the properties, fall in love with that piece of Moreland's Estate or Moreland's Manor or the White House Beach Club, only to be disappointed when you go to Leighton and Leighton said, look here, based on your income and expenses, I can only lend you this when you want Y and they're only lending you X. So the first step is to find out how much you can afford, and then you go and look at property based on that.
All right. I think the question is mounted on the assumption that the person has got the property already. And based on the earlier presentation, he's saying that, well, he's got 20 acres, take the 20 acres, develop it. And so at what point should he, enter the conversation, or would you invite him in to that conversation? Because he's only interested in getting the property done and possibly, yeah.
Well, that will be a different thing now. If they have the property and they want us to develop the property in partnership with them, then they'll come to us and we'll have that discussion. But if they wanted to build on their own land or develop the land themselves, just pay us as the developer to come in and put in the roads and the infrastructure and the amenities, then they would have a discussion with Leighton first. But if they want to do a partnership, they come to us first, we discuss it, then we would provide the financing if they already own the land.
All right. So if they're developing on their own land, talk to Leighton in terms of construction and a partnership. Talk to you.
Yes.
All right. Credit score. John Warren here.
They have to bear in mind, Corey, if it's residential that they're looking for at 5 acres. Right.
All right. Okay. All right. So it's a segue question. It's a segue question. What can be placed on a 5 acre? 5 acres. Can you get townhouse? Because they're also seeing the 1/4 acre with the 3-bedroom with a lot of land left over. What can be done on a 5 acre in another country? Yeah, in countryside. That's what they say. What can be done on 5 acres countryside?
5 acres can give you a hotel. It's a lot. It's a big piece of property to be good.
I've seen a 5-acre property with it was an old plantation house,
Right.
and it was really amazing. They had the main house on the hill, and then a little bit below it you had the you have the helpers quarters, and then behind it was this huge space. So 5 acres can do a whole lot.
Right. And here comes the other question: the hottest or the most sought after parish right now as it relates to properties appreciating. So if you build, I would say St. Anne. Jason, I would say St. Anne.
Well, in general, the hottest place was going to be Kingston. If you're building and you want appreciation, the cities are always going to give you the hottest properties, because generally most people go to the cities. But if you're looking for a place to develop to live, yes, St. Anne is being hot right now. Manchester is always very good because of its climate and its proximity to healthcare and first-class schools. It has a university there. White House, Westmoreland, where we are now, is going to be, where we're at now is Negril 30 years ago, basically. So getting into properties like that, now, when we started building the White House Beach Club, Sandals is there, there are other couple of hotels slated to be there, then those properties will have a significant jump in value in the next couple of years.
All right. And in the comments, I'm just saying that I'm picking my parish, but you know, you have to pick your parish. So I've got questions. I want individuals to jump in now to ask their questions. I see raise hand from Dre. Dre, I'm unmuting you, so ask your question, then we go on to Marcia. Dre?
Yes, my question is, where is this where is it located? I'm very much interested. I was being interested in having a piece of Jamaica. Where is it located, for one, the price, and how is it nearby the sea? And if so, what's the advantage and disadvantage, given that Jamaica, you know, is a tropical country and you have tropical storm and all of that? What's the disadvantage and advantage of having that a property next to the sea or overlooking the sea?
Jason?
Well, we have properties. Moreland Development Company Limited has properties primarily on the southern section of Jamaica. We have properties in Mandeville, Manchester. There are 2 properties there, one in Lacovia, St. Elizabeth, and one in White House, Westmoreland. The one in White House, Westmoreland is the one closest to the sea because we actually have a private beach there. Regarding your concerns about tropical storms and the proximity, the units there, what we use for glass there is category 4 impact resistant glass for the windows and doors, sliding doors. The roofs of the homes are concrete, so the roof can blow off. But in general terms, the hurricanes tend to come from Portland, St. Thomas side. So we're on the other side of the island. So by the time they get over to that side, they tend to be weakened.
Okay, all right. About the price range, let's say the one in Westmoreland and the one in St. Elizabeth. What's the price range looking at, and the price range?
All right, there are 2 different properties. In terms of the one in White House Beach Club is more of an investment property where we actually build and sell the homes. That one goes for about $470,000 US. I'd have to do a quick conversion to get that for you in pounds.
350.
Okay. What's the one in St. Elizabeth? Sorry.
In St. Elizabeth, no, we sell the land and then we would build for you if you want us to. So there we start a 1/4 acre lot. There starts at about 3.5 million Jamaican, so that would be pound square. That is how much?
19,000.
Go 19,000, 20,000 pounds thereabout.
Okay.
And in Manchester, it's about In Manchester, there would be about 25,000 pounds if you want something in Manchester.
Okay, I see. All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome, Dre. From Errol Benz is asking the design in White House. How can he get that design on his own property, and what would the cost be for that particular design? I know we spoke about it in our last meeting, and it was a nice figure of 85,000 pounds for the shell itself.
Well, for the drawing itself, Errol wouldn't be able to get the exact drawing, but we could modify it to get in something similar, because that drawing is the intellectual property of the architect. So they can't sell our homes, but you could modify, change a few rooms or something, and get a different house. So he could get the drawing to buy, and then we would discuss building that house for him. But in general, if you use 10,000 Jamaican dollars per square foot, you can't go wrong. So that is how much pounds, divide that by the rate. 10,000 Jamaican dollars is about how much English pounds?
10,000?
Yeah.
That's at $60.
Yeah,
65, yeah.
65.
Right, so you're looking at 60 pounds per square foot, basically. And that includes the labor and the material cost. So now if your house is 2,000 square feet, you multiply it by 60, let's say 65 pounds to be on the safe side, depending on the interest rate. And that's what it will cost you to build the house.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so as it relates to having properties in other parishes, more than actually rolling out the build on your own land concept, whether it be 5 acres, 50 acres, that conversation can be had, so that we can build out in your area. There's a question now for Christine. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me well, Christine?
I can hear you. Yes, I'm hearing you.
All right. Family land, and a house was sold to another family member. So family land and house was sold to another family member, and all the money is paid. No issues there. So I'm reading from this. But my parents died before handing over the title, and it can't be found in any of their papers. I am now trying to find out how to replace the title to give to the family member so I can finally complete outstanding affairs. The current owner has owned the property for over 15 years.
Died before handing over the title.
Yes, died before handing over the papers. All right. So the current owner, have to underline current owner.
Yeah.
Has owned the property for over 15 years and has paid all taxes. Right? Are you able to advise how I can obtain a replacement title?
Exactly the same as the other. It seems that today is lost titles application day. If it is that a title exists for that property and the property is under the Registrations of Titles Act, and there's a title, original title held at Harbour Street in Kingston, then all they have to do is make an application for a lost title. If it is the person on the title is dead, however, it sounds as though the person whose name the title may not be alive. If they're dead, then you have to administer a estate first in able to make the application for the lost title on their behalf. But there is a process that you go through. It's through the National Land Agency with an application and affidavits and advertisements, the 3 steps really, and then you can get a replacement of that title if a title exists for that property.
All right. So will it be in the realm of a will, that sort of thing? If it is in a will, that's that.
If it is that, if the person on the look if there is a will. This is a different matter though altogether. It's not about the lost title. This is talking about settling an estate, which is a different process and mind thought process from replacing a lost title. If you're talking about settling an estate of somebody who has died, whether with a will or without a will, that's a different conversation.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll pass the details on to you, and you can have a one-on-one with the individual. And here comes the bold squatters question. Now, how can you remove family or squatters from your land if you haven't protested for a long period of time? If you have not protested for a long time, how can you remove squatters or family from your property?
If you have or you haven't protested, which one was the question? You have or you haven't protested?
Have not protested for a long time. You have not protested,
yes,
but you just want them gone.
And you let them live on your land. Yeah.
All right.
Right. Have land or property in Jamaica. Be very careful how you let people just reside on your land or reside in your property without there being some kind of formal agreement or some kind of interest shown by you. Because what the danger is that persons believe that you have an interest. Therefore, they in their mind, they think it's theirs. Emotionally, they think it's theirs. They stay there for a long time. They have 2, 3 children, with a little property on there and so on and so on. And when your property, it can be a problem. I would say, in terms of your property, have tenants or family staying on there, give them a formal agreement, a written formal agreement. Sometimes charge them even a peppercorn rent so that they know what their position is. They know their boundaries. They know it's not theirs. You understand? And then when you come to want to get it back, you can serve them a notice to quit if it is that you want it for your own purposes, or you offer them first choice in a sale. But always keep it very formal. Informality gives a notion of not wanting it, not caring.
All right. So I suppose it answers a question about preventing squatters.
Just to add to that, Corey, if and Christine, just to mention it, they may have heard of something about adverse possession. Yeah. What would happen if it is that the squatter remained on the property for a number of years? There was a whole issue sometime before whether they were undisturbed or not. But if they're on the land long enough, for I think like 12 years now, and they
12 years.
They can jump up and say, guess what? They have been living here 12 years. So what Christine said is very, very important. Make sure you have even your peppercorn. I love that expression, your peppercorn agreement, because guess what? If they can prove that they've been there for 12 years, and in some cases even longer, yep, they can get it by adverse possession.
Yes, you're quite. Is that Leighton speaking?
Yeah.
Yes, you're quite right, Leighton. So the whole idea, maybe I should have explained, the whole idea of making it formal and giving them a signed document, even a peppercorn rent, as you said, you like that word, it means that they are there with your permission. And one of the things about adverse possession, one of the criteria that you must meet to possess somebody's property or land is that you there with that your permission.
All right, got you. All right, I've got a question coming in from Ann Steele. All right, I will unmute Ann for her to ask the question. Ann? Go ahead. Oh, seems like I can't unmute Ann at all. But it still surrounds the question about the same adverse possession. And if you have your estate and you have not written a will, no indication that a particular person should benefit after you pass. Now, Christine, how does that play out in claiming stake to the property itself? Christine?
Corey, it's Anne speaking.
Oh,
Thank you.
Anne. Good.
Thank you so much for hosting this event. It's been very, very informative. I don't want to belabor the point on this forum because I know people have other questions. And it is about the same title question that you raised on my behalf earlier. I'm happy if I can to take this offline and speak to somebody because it's not about settling an estate. The property was sold and there is a contract drawn up. It's just that we were on... Before my parents passed away, we were unable to pass the title over, and I cannot find the title anywhere. So I don't want to belabor on this platform because I know it's not really about titles and lost titles and so forth. It's just that I thought I'd use the opportunity to raise the question, given that we had this open platform.
Great, Anne. Great. Absolutely. All right. And what that has done is now has kind of raised other questions from individuals because they too are experiencing the same things just by hinting at that issue. So it's very good for us to have these public forums that you can put it out there and you can get the support. We're here in Moreland Development, Victoria Mutual, and of course we've got great attorneys that can help your dream along to make it seamless and make it enjoyed some more. There are individuals also on this call that they have been given parcels of land and they wish to construct on the land but have not been given the title just yet. They have been promised the title and it's causing a whole lot of issues. So I hope you have heard enough to have this one-on-one with Christine. You have heard enough that you can speak to Jason to develop on the piece of property after you have gotten your title. And of course, you can approach Leighton at Victoria Mutual for the financing, that sort of thing. So Jason, I know you did not finish your presentation. You hit about 90%, but I know that you have got a bit of good news, a bit of goodies, as you always do. So I'm allowing you to complete your presentation and then we can wrap up with Leighton and address some of the questions that may arise. Jason.
Okay, so whilst primarily the discussion was about construction, we also sell properties, Moreland Development, and we offer referrals to people who refer a friend. So if you refer a friend and they purchase a property from any of our developments in Manchester, which is Mandeville, Manchester. And I saw a comment where someone was asking where in Manchester is the land. Yes, it's very close to Manchester High. It's about 5 minutes out of the town of Manchester proper, Mandeville proper, sorry. Our properties in Lacovia, St. Elizabeth, Palmbrook Estate. And the good news about Palmbrook is that since our last forum, we've had like 40 people visiting Palmbrook and buying properties. So the vast majority of Palmbrook Estate in Lacovia, St. Elizabeth is now sold. I think we only have about 10 or 15 lots remaining from the 382 that we started with. And we have a property down in White House, Westmoreland, which is the White House Beach Club. As I said, that's more of an investment property. You buy a unit there. We intend to turn that property into a resort. So we'll have people coming to rent. You know, a lot of people in the COVID are not traveling. But once people start traveling, the airports here are back open, then this is the kind of facility that I think most people would want to come to because we're doing villas. So you can come with your family and still be secluded in your own villa with your own swimming pool, your own chef, and have a vacation. So you can give us a call or visit our website at morelanddevelopment.com. Corey will post all of the details regarding Moreland Development in the chat here, so you can give me a call anytime. It's a WhatsApp number, you can WhatsApp me, and we can get the ball rolling.
All right, great stuff. Jason, definitely will post for persons to connect. Leighton, as it relates to financing and the question about your mortgage rates, and that was a question that popped up.
Okay, so we offer mortgages, of course, in Jamaican dollar, and the three main foreign currency: Canadian, US, and sterling. The rates on the foreign currency are either 4.25% or 5%. On the Jamaican side, we have a happiness campaign that we are doing currently, so it's 6.95% on the Jamaican dollar side. I will encourage anyone who is interested in owning a piece of the rock to do so. I always talk about myself. You know, I'm not going to talk anybody business. I'm in finance, so therefore I have to maintain confidentiality, but I can talk about myself. I own two. And I'm looking to probably get a third one. Why? Because it's important, as was highlighted by my colleagues, both Jason and Christine, and Corey himself has said it. The fact is that property appreciates in value. It's a solid way to make an investment, and if you can do so now, then I'll encourage you to do so. There are a lot of persons who are appreciating the value of Jamaica. They're appreciating the beauty of the country. And if we who are Jamaicans, whether we're first, second, third, fourth, fifth generation Jamaicans, and we know of that beauty and we can try to get something, try hold on to it. As is always important, and Jason said this, always speak to a mortgage advisor first. You will go down to White House, you will see White House, and you will love it. Right? You will love it. But Jason will tell you, make sure you talk to your mortgage advisor first. And that is wherever you go, because you need to make sure that you have enough to purchase that property. All right? And thank you all for joining us this evening. It was wonderful.
Thank you. So here comes a quick fire questions. I think there's 5 of them. Jason can answer, you can answer, Leighton, Christine, you can jump in. Can somebody apply for another mortgage if they already have one? I suppose that is you, Leighton.
Yes, I have 2.
All right. So that answered that question.
Affordability. As long as they can afford it, that's fine.
All right, and I believe that 91,000 pounds, 101,000 euros. I mean, 3. Come on, Colleen. I see you nodding your head there. Right. So get going, Colleen. Then Henry, we will send you the information most definitely. All right, you're interested in buying the property in Jamaica. Anybody else has got any other questions, burning questions before we bring this to a close? You have been really, really good. And to be honest with you, I've enjoyed this thoroughly. You have said to me that you needed a forum such as this. Individuals want that information to go back to their communities as well. To spread the word, because own where you love. I am a big believer in owning where you love. We all profess that we love Jamaica, own Jamaica. For investment purposes, for the feel-good purpose of it as well, being a part of a conversation that you are a home owner or a property owner in Jamaica, it feels good. For years, I was not a part of that conversation. I did not know how it felt until I acquired my property. And I was able to join the conversation about others buying up Jamaica and not leaving anything for anybody else. I was able to join it and be impactful in that conversation. I have dispelled a lot of the myths about how expensive things are in owning property. Daunting, yes, the first steps, but once you got on that ladder, the first rung of that ladder, it starts becoming so light, and you feel that sense of independence first, and then the sense of patriotism. You feel like you have a right to talk about Jamaica. It's a feel-good thing. Kimberly, I'm trying to follow up, try to get the connection on your question. I'm only seeing the last part. For example, the house was abandoned for 14 years. I'm not seeing, let me see if I can read. Oh yes, if someone abandons a house is it true that you are able to pay up the property taxes and for it to be then transferred to your name? So if you abandon it for 14 years and somebody pay up the property tax, can it be transferred in your name? Christine. We still have Christine. I'm not seeing her on, but I suppose Leighton, if Christine is not here, Leighton can take that on, or Jason, I think you.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I'm clear as to the question that is being asked.
Oh.
There has been a discussion in the past where if it is that someone is paying the person's property taxes, then does it mean that that person has a right to the property? Is that what she's alluding to?
Yes, absolutely. So she has said that the house was abandoned for something like 14 years. So if the person pay up, another person pay up that property tax, can they transfer the property to themselves?
It's not that simple, because the property in effect is registered to an individual. What will happen is that where property taxes are concerned, then the person who is paying it will have due process, as I understand it. They will have the receipts. But there was some discussion. I can't recall exactly how it goes. You remember, Jason, by any chance?
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
The house is abandoned for 14 years and you just go to the tax office and pay up all 14 years of property taxes in one go? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly that.
Okay.
Well, no. You would have to have occupied the place for 12 years. You have to occupancy. I think why this law was or is there, is because you would have had people who've abandoned their properties and you would have had needy people who would have utilized the property over a period of time and lived there for a period of time, taking care of the land. And over 12 years now they can file for it, which is called, what's the name of it? But no, a person can't just run and pay some property tax and then claim a person's property.
That the adverse possession clause?
Right, adverse possession.
Yeah,
yeah,
so because
I think that was how it came into being, because if you occupy the house for 12 years and the other person abandoned it, then social consciousness, I think, was why the law was in place. But you can't just see it abandoned. And if the person came there one day and told you to leave, then that 12-year cycle would have been broken and you'd have to start again. Or if they came and collected $1 from you for staying there, you'd have to start again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think there was also a discussion as to the law says that you claim property tax from the person in possession of the property who may not necessarily be the owner. And the persons who are in possession are arguing, okay, so what rights do I have if I've been paying this up? And that's how the discussion all started, and the adverse possession came into that. Right, that's what I remember. Right.
All right, good. And as it relates to Moreland, handing over titles, what's the waiting period for that?
Well, all our properties have their titles already, so generally it's a 90-day transaction.
90 days.
90 days to complete the transaction from you starting the purchase to your name being on the title. So our attorneys would have the title at our offices, and we would either send it to your attorney or you'd pick it up from us.
All right. So that's the average in the Moreland development, that it's 3 months, 90 days.
All right.
All right.
And it takes us, in terms of building, it would take us between 6 to 8 months to complete. So if you wanted to build a house, 6 to 8 months would be a very good timeline for us to complete the
All
house.
right. And if somebody's waiting on a title for over a year, what would you suggest or recommend they do?
Well, it would depend, You have developers, because all right, when we start out a development on day one, we do not have the titles for the properties. We have the parent title for that large parcel of land that we've purchased. But the real estate board now, you would have to reach a certain stage in that development before you can apply for what is called the splinter titles, which is the individual titles for the land. So we would have had to put in certain amount of infrastructure work already before we can get that. So if you have a developer just starting and they would give you a timeline. So when we just start a project, so for example, we purchase a new project now in St. Anne, and we can start initially taking deposits. There's a time when we can start taking deposits on that project. So once we get to that and we take Leighton's deposit, then we would advise Leighton that we anticipate, based on the work we have to do, that the titles would be ready in 6 months. Once the title is ready in 6 months, then you have that 3-month period in which to complete the transaction to get your title. So it depends on the person. So if the developer is still in the process of developing the property, they might have a longer wait.
Okay.
But with everything, we would advise you to get an attorney, and then your attorney would be the one who would write to the developer or write to the real estate board to say either this is a failed project, or you would know when a timeline as to when your title would come.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Baker. Thank you, Mr. Smith, and of course, Christine Campbell-Swaby, for this informative session. I've now seen the request for us to do another one, because taking the pain out of construction and home ownership, property ownership, is what we do, and we are all about empowering individuals. So if there's no other questions, I'll ask for you to drop your contact details if you want us to keep in touch with you. You can privately do so by hitting the Moreland and Development link in the chat. A lot of you who have already, may have had your contact details, but for Jason to have a one-on-one with you, Christine to have a one-on-one, and of course Leighton for that financial support, making sure that your dream is actualized. So at this point, I want to thank everybody for participating. I want you to understand that if you love Jamaica, own Jamaica, be in that conversation. When things go awry elsewhere, there is a safe haven. There is a place for you to probably just lock your doors and shut out the world for a little while. Make it your little haven. All right. I am in love with Jamaica no matter what's happening. I will always be an advocate for the coming home part of it. And that's why we are positioned. You have your land. Don't even think that Timbuktu is not a residential area. Yes, it is. And I use Timbuktu because I know it's a place in the world. But the country language, the Bakachuku, whatever you want to call it, it can become your safe haven, your dream. And
Baka got back.
Baka got back. As I could say, Ricky, and all those in Germany right now, persons joining us from Kuwait, United Emirates. Thank you for joining us. The Cato family, Claudia, who's got her group, her family and members, who benefited wholeheartedly from this conversation. Individuals, look, we are here at your beck and call. It's what we do.
Write on this. I don't know how to write on this.
All right. Click on the chat. Click on chat, and you can drop your details there. Or I am going to type where you can get in touch with me, and I will pass everybody else detail on. So here goes. I make it simple. It is info.buying property Jamaica.com. All right, buying property Jamaica.com. So everybody, that's the information. That is a key link to Mr. Baker and of course Mr. Smith and of course Ms. Campbell-Swaby. All right, drop us a message there. We will take care of you.
All right.
Any words, Mr. Smith?
Again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the afternoon and a great rest of the day. for all of us who are in here. I am heading off into our next meeting.
All right. Take care, Mr. Smith, and thank you so much. Mr. Smith is the Chief Representative Officer for Victoria Mutual in the United Kingdom. Of course, he's within his remit. He leads the diaspora regions, Canada, USA, and of course, UK, as we just mentioned. Right?
Thank you. Thank you, Corey. Jason,
You're
my
welcome.
friend, take care. Bye,
All right,
Christine.
All right, all right.
All right, and of course, Mr. Baker, he is the PR, Sales, and Marketing Manager at Moreland Development. He makes it happen for you guys. Christine Campbell-Swaby, she's attorney at law. She deals with all the legal stuff that keep the smiles on your face. I'm a facilitator to make sure that your dream, whether big or a little bit of nap, a reality. Oh, love Jamaica, own Jamaica. Hashtag own where you love. Thank you all for joining me, and we will catch up on the next one. I'll send the information out very soon. Don't forget to drop your information here so we can organize the next one with the architects and the other persons that you have requested. Thank you so much. Walk good. Love and all.
Corey, just to say, I sent a private message to Jason, but I'm not sure if he has seen that. If he could respond, please. Thank you. And thank you very much for organizing this again.
Oh, you're
Very
welcome.
informative.
You're welcome.
Thank you
You're
very much.
welcome. All right, we'll just hang around for a little while just to make sure all the messages come in. Feel free if you want to banter, still ask the questions. I will not leave. I will be the last person standing here. All right.
We for John, we do build sustainable homes, but a person would come to us for us to build one for them. We don't have a community where we build sustainable homes.
Okay, yes. The plan would be to have the idea, the draft, and then in discussion with you, look at the feasibilities, viability.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. No problem.
We will do that for you.
You're expert. I guess what I'm wondering is, do you have the expertise in terms of building sustainable houses?
We do have the expertise.
Okay.
We do have the expertise to build that for you.
Okay, okay.
So we just have to have a look at what you're considering to be sustainable.
Yes.
We're an eco-friendly developer, so most of our communities are already eco-friendly.
Right.
So transferring that to building your house, most of the homes here are self-sustaining with water and electricity already.
Right.
So we can do that for you.
Okay. And is it that you will do all the development, or what if you are looking at, say, I know there's another company, I think it's called like Freeform in Jamaica, is it?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Would it be a possibility that you also could work with others in the field in terms of sustainable development?
We would, because, for example, Freeform, you can go to Freeform and purchase the materials that they sell to build your unit.
Right, right.
Right. So we could do that. We could get their expertise in the areas that if we're lacking in a particular area. Because again, we'd have to look at your plan and see what you intend to do.
Okay. All right. Fine. Okay. Great. Thanks again. Thanks.
You're welcome.
This is a question for Jason. Jason, if I intend to build a property using expanses of glass, is that a possibility in Jamaica considering sunshine, sort of solar glass and stuff like that? Because I'd love something with a lot of light.
Well, when you're building with a lot of glass, you would have to consider the heat. Yeah. So what we would advise is for you to get, you have tinting mechanisms so you can dim the amount of light that coming into the house. Or White House Beach Club projects, we have lots of huge windows and doors in it. It's a tropical modern design. So yes, we can do that for you with large amounts of glass. We get the 1/2 inch or 1 inch thick glass, which would be hurricane impact resistant and well, impact resistant windows. And we'll do that for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Feel free. Mr. Baker is here. If you want to build your 2-bedroom, your 3-bedroom, talk to him. This is the time. This is the time.
How is Clarendon in terms of location and property development? I guess near the Osborne store area. Is that a place that is on your radar, or Clarendon generally speaking?
No, Clarendon is not generally on our radar, and it's not generally on most developers' radar, unfortunately, because unfortunately for Clarendon, it is between St. Catherine that has a lot of development going on and Manchester. So people would prefer Manchester based on the climate, and they'd go to St. Catherine because of the proximity to Kingston. So that is why I think Clarendon isn't getting as much development as it should be, because you have nice flat lands in Clarendon, but people would rather the climate in Manchester or the proximity to Kingston in St. Catherine.
Okay.
Yes, a question that was not answered in terms of the bill of quantity, the labor costs. How much a laborer is normally paid per day?
A laborer here in Jamaica?
Yeah, in Jamaica, yes.
A laborer here is probably about 2,500 Jamaican dollars a day, I think.
Right.
But when they're building, that's not. I said that all of that is the contractors. You don't want to get down in the minutia of that. If you're building and you're checking on what a laborer cost is, your headaches. You have no tablets for those kind of migraines.
So yeah, you're right. But I suppose this person wanted to keep their family member in employment. Family member is unemployed and would more than be willing to employ their family member whilst they're on. Okay.
All right. When we go into a community, we tend to use if we find skilled labor in that community, that is where we're getting our labor force from. And yes, we wouldn't. Let's say, for example, we're building in Clarendon. We wouldn't bring a laborer from Manchester to Clarendon. We'd get laborers unskilled laborers in Clarendon.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if their family member is skillful, let's say there's a carpenter, we look into utilizing them. We would start them off on something which isn't detrimental to the unit first to check on their skills. But yes, that's a simple enough thing for us to do.
What when it comes to roofing though, say the 3-bedroom, the model unit that you showed earlier, what sort of roofing was that?
It's a metal aluminum roofing. They stack on one another.
Okay.
But you have different types of roofing, and the client will dictate to us the type of roofing they want on their unit. They have different styles, different colors. So typically it's the client's decision on their type of roof. We can make suggestions. So if a client says to us they want this, we can say, well, we'll make a suggestion, but it's ultimately the client's decision on the roof.
All right. I'm just being a little bit left wing now. A beautiful structure that probably requires a decrabon, something looking fancy, and the client say, look, let's put 2 zinc on it. What dipping in the emotional side of the thing now? I don't know what to laugh, but
the thing would be, remember, they would have to bring us the design of the unit beforehand. So we were looking at the drawing. If the drawing requires zinc roofing, then it's a zinc roofing going on it.
Oh, explain that part to me. I mean, requires zinc roofing. Why would it require?
Well, it depending on the drawing, because lots of zinc is no longer just the small shiny metal that we are accustomed to growing up. Most of the hotels now have on a zinc roof, but they are much longer, much more weather resistant material, what we call zinc, because it's made of metal, and the length of it and the corrugation in it, that's why we call them zinc.
Right.
But if a person has a house that is designed for a zinc roof, because again, you know, when for example, if Leighton is lending the money to build a unit, this is what Leighton is lending the money to build based on the BQ, and the BQ would have in it, the bill of quantities would have in it the type of roof that is going on the house. So you can't then just change that type of roof midstream. You'd have to go back to Leighton and say, Leighton, listen, I'm going to do this, or you'd have to come to us and say, listen, I want this, and then we'll have a discussion on it. Because we're building based on the drawing and what is approved by the parish council.
Absolutely. All right. Any other questions from anybody else as it relates to construction? You want to ask what the construction climate is in Jamaica in terms of material costs? I mean, and Jason is here, you know. Mr. Baker not going anywhere for now.
Well, I see. Mr. Henry is asking. So roughly how much to build after I buy the land in Manchester? And I said that is a tricky question, because you'd have to give me an idea as to how big the house is that you want to build. But as we had worked out about 60 pounds per square foot, 60, let's say 65 pounds per square foot, to be on the safe side. So therefore, then it is a matter of how many square feet, what is the size of the unit. So whatever you dream of, you multiply it by 65 pounds, and then you would get the cost of building. So that was from Mr. Henry.
Okay. All right. The architect. So more than architect. Now here comes another question. Before we go to the architect question, how much to build a 2-bed in Portmore? So if more than was supposed to undertake building a 2-bedroom in Portmore.
All right. And as I said previously, it depends on the size of the 2-bedroom. But let's say we're building something like the 2 bedrooms that are in Portmore. The 2 bedrooms in Portmore are approximately 800 square feet each. So you take 800 and multiply it by the 65 pounds, and we'll end up with about 52,000 pounds to build it.
Okay.
And if you multiply that by, you said, what is the exchange rate now for pounds? 174?
Yeah, 174.
All right. So that you're looking at about 8-9 million Jamaican dollars. Right. 2 bedrooms, probably 2 bathrooms, living and dining and kitchen.
Amazing. All right. But this now, it's dependent on persons already having the land and commissioning more land to build.
Right.
The 2-bedroom. Right.
So you'd already have to have the land in Portmore.
Right. So the architectural designs, cost, all of those things will be included into the 8-9 million.
No, because we don't have an in-house architect.
Okay.
So you'd have to commission an architect to draw you the plans. This is just for the actual construction of the unit.
And on average, what's the cost for like to do a 2-3 bedroom design, that sort of thing?
The architect again will charge per square foot. So they'll charge you probably 100 Jamaican dollars per square foot. So 100, and let's say it's 3,000 square feet. For the house, you're looking at 300,000 Jamaican dollars. So if we divide that now by the 174, you're looking at about £1,700.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you take that to parish council, you know, on the square footage, what sort of fees parish council charge?
Parish council fees aren't expensive. They charge again as per square foot for the approval, but that's minuscule. That would be much less than what you pay for any other part of it.
Right.
That's a nominal figure.
I'm still tabling questions coming in on my WhatsApp. So although we have ended for the majority of Zoom participants, there are a lot of questions still coming in on the WhatsApp as well, knowing that you are there. All right, which is Marcia. So Marcia, I think you can, if you're here, you can unmute. I can unmute you. You can ask a question. We haven't heard your voice. So go ahead, Marcia. You can ask a question.
It's Marlene. Hi.
Oh, Marlene. Hi. Apologies.
How are you, Corey? You all right?
I'm good.
Anyway,
Marlene.
So I'd like to know about Moreland's sustainability and ecological values, and how does that translate into the buildings of their development?
Great question.
Well, hi. Our properties, we leave a lot of, we consider ourselves an eco-friendly developer. So we leave lots of our properties as green areas that we will not develop. How this translates into the units, for example, in Manchester and even St. Elizabeth, we advise everybody to build their own water storage tank. And we've just seen from the COVID, granted it did not hit us as bad as it hit certain countries. But let's say for argument's sake, there was an interruption in the water supply. Then you would have your own water storage, as well as we get sunshine 12 months out of the year. So solar panels, wind energy to make your house self-sustaining. So you will be off the grid basically except for telecommunications.
So sorry, can I come back with another question? So
Yes.
I might have missed it, but did you talk about solar energy as well?
Yes. So lots of the homes here are in Moreland, because I'm currently in Mandeville, Manchester at Moreland Estate. So you have homes here that are off the grid. They have solar panels, so they have their own energy and their own water. So they harvest rainwater.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Let me see what else is going here. Questions popping up again. Right. In terms of, I tell you, we have such a fun nature as a people. In terms of having parties in your property, what's the restrictions? What restrictions do Moreland have on having parties, considering that you purchase your home for relaxation, peace of mind coming out of COVID?
Well, our communities generally, as I said, our communities have first world amenities. So you have a clubhouse where if you want to keep a party, you simply keep it around by the clubhouse, which won't affect your neighbors. So you go back to the clubhouse, you keep your birthday party, there's a swimming pool there, you have ample space for parking, ample space to host 200, 300 guests. So that is where we generally find people hosting events, is at the clubhouse. And generally what should we call it now? The character of the people buying into our communities they tend to be very similar in terms of noise restriction and respect, basically. Respect for your neighbors. So you won't necessarily have that happening in one of our developments.
All right, good things. Good things. Hope that answers your question. Party Giant. The White House development, is it poised for, no, sorry, let me read it again. Can you manage the White House development so that you will be able to utilize it whenever you want, but also have visitors to earn some money?
Yes. So you can have blackout dates. Remember, you can live at White House permanently if you so choose. You can just live in your unit. Your unit does not have to go into the rental pool. But should you decide to put it in the rental pool, you block out the dates that you would want it to use it for yourself. And you just come when you want to use it and use it. Remember, it's your house. You just have some people managing it for you. So again, you have no real headaches.
All right. All right. All right, so no further questions. I think we'll end here.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us and having this little one-on-one, this little surgery with Mr. Baker, Moreland Development, definitely. So Jason, the information to get in touch with quite a few persons are here. I see Marcia heading back in, and I know Marcia had a burning question to ask you. We'll try to accommodate Marcia's question before we end. Marcia, you're back in. The question, yes, yes, and you're back in. Do you have any questions for Mr. Baker before we exit, apart from the one for Christine? Do you have any development question itself, building construction question?
So no, it was just confirmation really around the price of an acre in St. Elizabeth. My father had about 5 acres, and I think I heard you mention that at current prices, it's about £20,000 for a quarter of an acre.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted that confirming. And then I guess...
Hold on, Marcia. You are checking the prices so you can compare to what your lot would be valued?
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to do that unless you have some development in it. So remember, all lots that we're selling, the infrastructure is already in. So the road, the water, light, first world amenities. So if you just have 5 acres without the amenities, then you can't compare the price like that.
Okay.
Because even if you're applying to sell it to a developer, they would have to take out a bit of the land to make the roads and all of that. So they can't divide that 5 acres into 20 quarter acres, for example. You won't get 20 quarter acres because some of it has to go to road or however many quarter acres, right? So, and again with the pricing, and it depends on your location as well in St. Elizabeth. But what you would do is get a valuator to come and value the land for you.
Okay.
And they'll give you a decent valuation and you can sell based on that valuation.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Yeah, and then I guess it was just, I don't know if you saw my question in the chat, but it's quite clear that my dad's current lawyer is a bit incompetent. And so how easy is it to get rid of an incompetent lawyer and make sure that you get the paperwork that they have so that you can instruct another lawyer to complete your legal work for you?
As simple as calling them, relieving them of their services and have your new attorney write to them for the paperwork.
Okay. Okay. It's just that in England, people do get a bit stroppy and they take a very long time to hand things over, and yeah.
Well, they'll take a long time to hand it to you, probably, but if it's an ex-attorney who would report them to the Bar Association, then...
Okay, okay.
Plus, there's courtesy amongst the attorneys. They would have done business, so it shouldn't take much time to do that.
Okay, that's fine then. All right.
All right. Everybody satisfied? Mr. Jones, Loxley, Nicholas. All right, Nicholas, I saw your message. Most definitely we'll get in touch with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, but is there anything you want to, direct to Jason while he's still here?
Which company is Jason from?
Moreland Development.
Okay, thank you. So you're based in Jamaica or in London?
Yes.
Okay. So who's the rep in London?
I'm the rep here. Corey.
Oh, Corey.
Corey is our rep in England.
Okay then. So we'll be in touch then.
All right, most definitely. Thanks, Nicholas.
Okay.
Nicole. One of Nicole is from the US side. I don't want to go out on a limb and say it's Nicole from the US. Nicole, you have anything to add? Lord Alan, Edward, Donna, Nads?
No, man, I enjoyed it. Very informative. Very informative.
All right. Christine is jumping back in because of the question that Marcia asked, Jason. Right, so allow her to put her 2 cents in that response. Christine. Christine, you have a join with the audio, so we're waiting on you to join with your audio. Cassie, you have any questions before we wrap up? Cassie, any family member in Jamaica having issues with their property, thinking of doing some construction on own property, that sort of thing? Before we go. Christine, not hearing you at all, so I guess we have to probably just leave it there. Another 3 minutes, 1:45, we will exit. Hopefully Christine can hear. No, Christine not hearing you at all. So best we just leave it here. Thank you all. I'll pull the plug on the meeting and I will inform you of the next meeting. All right. Oh, she's connecting to her audio now. All right. I think it's a Wi-Fi issue. She's on the outside. All right, people. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jason. We'll be in touch. There's some contact details there for us to follow up on. Christine.
All right.
Thank you very much. It's been
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Awesome.
Thank you, Claudia.
Yeah, big up yourself. Hurry back.
Respect. Hey, Christine.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
We were trying to get you back in to answer Marcia's question.
Yes.
Unfortunately. So I will send send over the, I'll send the details over.
I do apologize. Just busy Friday, and you know what Fridays can be like, Friday afternoons in Jamaica, especially when you have children. And then I couldn't get back in because I'm technically challenged, Corey, with all these things. So, but so is Leighton still here and is Jason still here? They're gone.
No, they just stepped out. Everybody just stepped out. Well, Leighton left a little while back. But I will ask a question nonetheless so that you can respond. So it's picked up on a recording. How easy is it to replace a lawyer if they are not performing?
Well, it's not a case of how easy it is there isn't one easy answer. What you should concern yourself with, if you have an attorney and you're falling out, or they're not performing, or you're not happy with them, it depends on what they're doing for you. If it if it is that they're dealing with a court matter for you, then there is a process. You have to let the court know, and you have to file in the court a notice of change of attorney, and your new attorney will usually do that for you, so that they can act. If it's not a court matter, and they're just doing something for you, maybe doing a land transaction or something like that, then you can change your attorney at any time. It's not difficult to do. You just let them know, I don't want you anymore. But remember, they have your files, they have your records, and they have all your documents. So if it is that you owe them fees, then they may not release your files or your records or your documents to you until they think they have been put to a satisfactory position in terms of their fees. I've seen that before.
Okay, all right, got that. Thank you so much, Christine.
Oh man, yeah man. Thank you for having me.
Look,
you're in Jamaica, right? Of course you are.
Yes, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot. In the same climate as me, so me a shine.
Yeah, you see.
In the same climate as me
Absolutely.
right now.
Yeah.
And we're trying to encourage persons to have a little stay in Jamaica. It may not be permanent, it may be part-time, depending on their season in their life. But everybody can come and live in Jamaica, It's not always possible. But if you plan your life properly, you get in touch with the right financial institution, you take the requisite risks with the information that you need. It can be done. Make a 5-year plan, a 4-year plan, and then you can, as a Jamaican or a descendant of Jamaican or a non-national, can spend some time in Jamaica, and I recommend it all day long. You do too, I think.
Yes, absolutely, Christine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, sweetheart. Yeah,
all
look
right.
after yourself.
So we'll
all right.
On. Yes, you too. Take care. Bye-bye, Corey.
Yeah,
bye-bye.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
All right.